Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to this episode of the Real Wealth Solutions Podcast. I am Darren Light, one of your co-hosts, along with my awesome partner, Greg Scully. Today, we are joined by Bill Hamel. Bill is an experienced multifamily investor from the New York area, and we're excited to have him on this morning. Bill, if you would not mind, take just a few moments to just give us a little background about who you are, where you are, what you've been up to these last few years, and how you got to this point.
Yes, Darren, thank you so much. I appreciate inviting me on your podcast. It's an honor. I have been investing in the Albany, New York area for quite a while, 20 plus years. Investing in, smaller properties, 2 families, 3 families, escalating up into medium-sized properties over time, and slowly getting into much larger multifamily, but got out of the property management recently and looking to scale.
At what point did you realize, hey, I want to grow bigger, but I need something else to do? I'm speaking for you here, so correct me if I'm wrong. Did you think I've plateaued? I want to accumulate more units faster. What do I need to do that? Is that where you got to a certain point and why you found an education platform and maybe been able to take advantage of that?
Over the years, I did make a system out of the small properties and, got very comfortable with them. And unfortunately, had a limiting belief along the way where, I belonged in this, small property world, which was fine because I accumulated quite a few over the years. But looked at those larger multifamily communities, as more of it just was above my head, which was unfortunate because I went so many years accumulating the smaller buildings. But it went really well, but got very busy when you accumulate 45 properties, a total of 200 plus units. It turns into a property management game. Very busy, very tedious business when you're hands-on, and you're not able to focus so much on the buy anymore. So many years go by, and it just wore on me after 25 years of that daily hustle and bustle of managing smaller, older buildings, and to have that dream stare right at me of I could sell 30 of these small buildings and 1031 exchange it into a 100-unit complex was that transitional thought. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. So, I was able to do some 1031s, exchanging into 3 individual properties through my transition, and, learned a lot as I've been looking at that, I guess you can say 30 to 100 unit style properties.
I've had the pleasure of getting to know you the last few months. So I know the last property you bought, if I'm not mistaken, was the 35 or 39 unit up your way.
Yeah, we're a couple of weeks away on that.
Was that the largest one to date that you've purchased?
Yeah, we purchased a 30 unit back in 2018, which was a nice stepping stone. That was before I decided to sell a lot of our smaller stuff, but the 39 unit should close in a week or two, and that'll be a nice stepping stone from that 30.
So you really were just inside your business every day, grinding it, and it sounds to me like you just had this epiphany, like, why am I why am I doing this to myself? What steps do I need to take to, scale up, make management scalable and easier, more efficient? So you just had your own aha moment. Is that safe to say?
Pretty much. I had this goal of being an owner, not an operator, for probably the last 8, 10 years. Building that property management business that runs itself, where I'm able to focus on other things. So that was a challenge for me, which ultimately I think I was, the main chokehold to that goal. I was focused on it, but unfortunately, my desire to be so involved with that day to day of the property management kept me from achieving that. I had good employees and everybody with good intentions, but looking back, I was unable to get my nose out of that daily business every day, keeping me from being the owner. I had trouble, not being so involved in the daily operations.
So you had your own property management company essentially that was running all of your own holdings? Was it
Yeah, it started
kind of
with
formally a property management company, or was it more you just
Well, it
doing it?
started with a two-family building when I was 21. So, property by property over a long period of time, or even a short period of time, we managed in-house. So, we accumulated them over a long period of time and managed them along the way. So you go from being a property management company of a two-family to 25 years later, we're seeing that same property management company with 200 plus units.
Yeah. Well, and that spread over so many smaller buildings. That's a lot of closings to have. That's a lot of individual insurance policies potentially to have, unless you get some kind of blanket policy. I mean, there's just a lot of unique pieces tied to each unique property compared to like just owning one 200 unit where you got one insurance policy, you got one property manager, maybe two actually. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work is what I'm getting at.
It was, or it is. So that it really consumes you. I have colleagues in the area that I've known for years, and they do a much better job of allowing their employees to run their properties, and they've been able to grow a little bit more than I have, and during you're always through the process, it didn't matter so much. I was so focused on that property management, and I had to put my, I guess you could say, signature on everything, where it was mine, and it had to be done a certain way. But things don't have to be perfect. Let your business grow, so you can grow. So it is very, very tedious. And, ultimately I had to, sell a lot of the smaller properties to get to that area I needed to be, which was focusing on larger properties.
Right on.
So are you strictly third-party management now?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is nice. It's been a year. But our properties, the larger properties that we retained, I hired people I know in the business. So over the years, you meet a lot of the other property managers and everybody else in the business. So different properties, I have different managers depending on, the locations. So, I have a pretty good feel for, who I should hire based on different properties, different locations, just by being a manager for so long.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking, man, you got a ton of experience that is going to come in super. I see in my head at some point you doing everything from unit tours to some level of rehab to cleaning up trash. I mean, you've probably done every facet of property management in terms of dealing with residents to asset management in terms of what it takes on the back end just to keep uh, all the bills paid, you know, as well. So yeah, that's a tremendous amount of experience that you're sitting on that's going to pay off huge, I think. How was it?
Well, and it
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and it did, but it's, at the same time, if I was, there's so many things in life, if I was to do it all over again, I would have continued to focus on buying buildings. That's the needle mover, work. Where, yes, in the early days, I took so much pride in, finding the property, but then just diving in and doing the work, finding the tenants, everything. So when you're doing everything along with a partner or each partner, doing our thing, for the first 10 years, we didn't hire anybody, other than real specialty type contracting that we were unable to do. But we did everything, which really slowed the growth. It was systematic and profitable, but you can only buy so many buildings in a year when you're doing all the maintenance and all the management.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So that had to have been tough though to relinquish control then after a couple of decades of being very involved. How'd that go? Or was
It's
it
gone,
or
it's
was it
gone
like
well.
or was it like a huge relief? You're like, oh, this is all off my shoulders now, and now I can focus on what I've been thinking about for 5 or 6 years now. So I could see it probably going both ways. You're like, because sometimes you hand over something to somebody and you watch them do it, and you're like, just like, let me just do it for you, and it'll be done, and we can move on to the next task. But it also frees up a ton of time because now you're spending time underwriting, or you're doing, like you said, the big needle mover type stuff that really only maybe you can do as part of your team, or you're focusing on very high priority items instead of picking up flooring at lumber liquidators. Darren.
Yeah. Preach.
And that's what it came down to. Yes, it was very difficult to, relinquish that control. But so I struggled with that over the last, 2 years. But it just mounted, the pain, mounted so much after 27 years of just not getting to that spot I wanted to as far as being an owner. I could not shake the operations, the busyness of that operation. So I just reached a tipping point, that I had to do it. So knowing that, it was clear that, fortunately, I knew some people in the business that I could trust and feel comfortable with them managing our properties. So we kept the larger, most quality oriented buildings. So since they've been managed by third party, they're the types of buildings that are easier to manage. They have, in a year, they haven't had a lot of turnover. They don't have, a lot of surprise type maintenance. They're in locations where we have great tenants. We haven't had any collection issues even through COVID. So, they're properties that, property managers love to take on, because they're not major headaches.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I did want to stay very intentional about was, these are friends of mine. They're taking over, good properties. And I knew that I had to, find that sweet spot of, mentoring them in a way because they're newer in the business and I've been doing it so long, but not being a royal pain in the ass, by, following them around and, saying or doing, don't do it that way, do it this way because I've been doing it so long. So I'm very conscious and strategic on how all of that's being handled. Because I learned so much by, not being able to get that result when I had my own employees.
Yeah. I know when I'm on our properties and there's people from our management company there, I'll be like, hey, what's going on? But I try not to talk to them, not because I don't like them or anything, but I'm very good at just allowing somebody to do their job. I'm like, first of all, they're just going to stop working, whatever they're doing, whatever the task is at hand. They know I'm an owner, so I think there is some they want to put on a good light for the person that they know owns the property. But I'm just like, whatever, they're doing their thing over here, I'm doing my thing over here, I'll wave. And so that I find that easy for me. I'm more a pain in the ass on the reports and financial side where I'm like typing off emails about, data rather than stuff on site. I don't know. That was an odd little tangent there.
No, well, that's the smart way to go. That you're being an owner, not an operator. You don't even have to spend a lot of time with some like if you did stop and interact with a maintenance guy. It only might be for a minute or two, but it's distracted you from your real focus. Where you only talk to that gentleman for 2 minutes, but that you continued to think about it afterwards on what he was doing, how the interaction went, what was the result that you really wanted from that maintenance guy. So now you're just distracted from your original intent. So I'm just speaking from myself. It might be a short interaction, but now you're thinking about it, which takes up more energy. From thinking about what we should be, which is our financials, and that next purchase.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing that moves the needle type stuff. So now that you freed up some time, you're looking at a state, correct, for growth. Or are you looking still in New York for the larger properties?
I'm still in New York. I can't discount, the area that I've been doing this so long, so many resources, so many contacts, so much familiarity with the market, so it's easy that way where, I know inventory, I know, the demographics. So it's just low hanging fruit here. And but I am looking in the Tampa area of Florida, which that's a huge learning curve because I'm not familiar with the neighborhood. I've been there many times over the last year. But it takes much more than that to really get a good familiarity with the area. Along with the housing stock. So, that's a learning curve that I've just begun.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, to get familiar. I completely agree with you with staying in your backyard because you've got that firsthand knowledge. What I really like knowing an area very well because you can eliminate things so much faster, which frees up more time to chase things that might be, uh, worth chasing. Because you can very quickly just be like, oh, I know exactly where that is. I know the neighborhood. I know the shortfalls, the path of progress, whether or not this is something that I'm even interested, without even cracking open necessarily financials. You can make decisions based on market. So that's a huge advantage to to use to your advantage. But then learning Tampa, yeah, it's takes a ton of time to know a market well from out of state, because I did it. I started investing from Alaska. You end up having, or I recommend having to do market tours and build relationships. So that is, I think part of the theme here is your highest and best use of time is defining uh, what needs to be done to get to the bigger goal, and that may not be painting trim.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
only that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darren.
No, I was just going to say that sort of that leads us into what I was wanting to also ask you about in regards to um, uh, just from knowing you now. I know that you've hired someone to start helping you um, identify, locate possible property purchases in your backyard, maybe possibly do some underwriting and get them to the closing table. So you've scaled up in your how you've finally identified how to move the needle in acquiring larger buildings, but then you've also taken a step to expand and hire someone to help you do that, so that you're not doing it all. And that's just another aspect of scaling. And so I just wanted to ask you, was that tough to get to that point? How's that going? And what else do you see needs of maybe possibly hiring someone else to do other tasks as you continue to grow?
Yeah, I needed somebody. Everybody has their skill sets, and I'm fully aware, and I've been fully aware of my strong areas and my weak areas. I was able to ignore a lot of the weaker areas along the way, which was a mistake. So I needed someone to help me with certain parts of sales and marketing, and just spending that added time making the proper contacts to generate some deal flow. By yourself, you're just so busy. Even though I'm not a hands-on property manager, we still manage, not close to 100 units yet. Once we buy this 39 unit, we'll be well into the 90s again. And but right now we're still asset managers of 60 units, still finishing up a value add property. In addition to just normal critical path items. Just there's only so much time in a day. So to get proper deal flow and to achieve the goal of making 3 acquisitions, in 2021, I had to get somebody to help me.
What role is that filling then? Are they, is it just bird dogging deals, or or is it somewhat of that elimination thing? Is like, take a look at these deals and disqualify them and only show to me what you think meets this standard that we've pre-established of potential? I'm just curious to see.
Well, a direct to seller. So
Oh, okay.
in this market, it's been difficult to find deals the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
We're reaching out, through cold calling, mailing campaigns, along with, that scaling aspect of, marketing, building marketing pieces and, the credibility and having, pitch decks prepared. So when, doing all that upfront work. So when there is a deal, you're prepared with everything to act quickly and professionally, like we were talking earlier. I have to make sure that when we have that next deal that comes along, we're set. We're ready to sell that deal off to a potential partner or partners, and we're also prepared to sell ourselves, with our credibility, along with that deal, ultimately, making sure that that transaction goes smoothly, because the time goes by fast from signing a contract or, having a LOI accepted to the closing table, so that there isn't a lot of rooms for hiccups and stumbling around through the process. So especially when you've been doing it so long, it needs to go smoothly.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Yeah, getting that evergreen type stuff in hand, because I've been in that position where you're moving to, through maybe a negotiation. You're like, oh, I wish we had that credibility book done that we could hand to this person to kind of get them a little more familiar with us. So yeah, getting that stuff done early and having available for when you need them instead of trying to create it all at the same time. That's great advice. And it's time consuming, and especially the direct to seller stuff is very time consuming. I find it to identify properties, maybe skip trace, work on a letter campaign or or cold calling. So yeah, kudos for you to farm out some of that stuff that may take many swings of the bat before you actually make contact with anything.
Yeah, I did. I tried for, I was, after the transition decision was made, we sold a lot of properties, to enable the scaling to get away from, the tedious part of that small, that small property portfolio, I guess you can say. I was able to really understand how my day was spent, and I dabbled with the cold calling and direct to seller, and when you dabble, you don't get the results that you want. So I knew after 8 or 9 months when I was looking for some help, I knew exactly where I needed the help. So, I was looking for someone to help me with the direct to seller, cold calling and mailing, because he's spending probably 5 or 6 hours a day with that. And right now we're building it, but it's almost like an infinite job where, yes, we have 3 different markets that we're doing, one in Albany, one in Tampa area, and then kind of a bird dogging on a really ambitious market in our backyard also, for a high level investor who's looking for something really large. So once you build that database, we're going to have a couple thousand people, and then it turns into a follow-up system. So, yeah. It's just going to be a wheel, ultimately, getting that trickle effect, over, period of time where, the deal flow just happens based on the fruits of that labor.
Sounds like with this person, you're doing processes and systems as well as, is it fair to say, like a branding effort, so to speak? You mentioned marketing, but I'm thinking branding just because, people need to know Bill Hamel Real Estate when I bring them a deal. I want them to already know about it, possibly. especially
Yeah.
if they're familiar partners.
Yeah, there's definitely some assistance there, some brainstorming. You know, it's an area that I have not taken advantage of over time, other than just being in my market for so long. You know, inevitably you become well known just from being around town, being a active investor. But yeah, that was, you know, hiring somebody that is like-minded, but you know, coming from, you know, a much younger generation, so I'm able to get a viewpoint from a really sharp guy, but from, you know, that I guess you can say 25-year-old mind. So, you know, I'm looking at things based on my experience as a 49-year-old. He's coming at it as a 25-year-old. You know, how do we want to market, you know, to the, you know, demographic now, where it's a social media world, and you know, you want to portray yourself as a major player in the market, but also in a way that's effective. You know, so that's an area that wasn't a good skill set of mine. So you know, from the direct to seller to branding, and you know, just the general brainstorming on a weekly basis, you know, working hand in hand, complementing each other is the goal. So you know, I found you know, a guy that really fits that mold, and you know, I think that we're going to have great success.
I remember us having a discussion before you hired this person. And I don't know if you had identified this specific person at the time, but was there a mental hurdle, if you will, that you had to get over in order to take this next step? Like, hey, I'm relinquishing this amount of control to this person, but at the same time relying on him to help grow my business. But also, the positive of that is there are some really sharp 20 somethings out there in this business that we're in. And Greg and I've worked with some, partnered with some, and know some, and they can add to your point. You know, they know a lot of stuff that we don't know or don't really need to fill our head with, that we can leverage their knowledge on. That's more of than a 1 point question there. But was that a mental hurdle for you, or did when you knew you had to make that decision, like, no, let's just go do it?
Yeah, it's a hurdle, just like it just, you know, hiring anybody, you know, it's you know, does this make sense? Is it affordable? What if, you know, things don't go as planned? We're in a result-oriented business here, where, you know, I'm working with this gentleman to acquire properties. So, you know, the concern is, okay, what if it doesn't work? I'm paying somebody, you know, to you know, not get the result that we want, which ultimately equals losing money. You know, so it's just like any business. You know, you know, I understood clearly that, you know, you got to do it. You know, take the shot, be confident in your ability, be confident in the person that you're hiring's ability. And as long as you're following, you know, your action plan with your strong reason why, you know, we're doing this, you know, you'll get your result. You know, will the result be exactly, you know, what you intended? You know, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But you know, it's always a good result nonetheless. You know, that's the beauty of goals. You know, sometimes you don't reach them entirely, but you know, that's fine. There's still a strong degree of success. You know, going through that process, and you know, at least achieving, you know, a degree of progress.
Yeah, I think something I find helpful is allowing myself not to be the ultimate judge of results. Because there's been things that we put together, I've looked at, I'm like, ah, no, this is okay. this is not necessarily what I have in mind. And then you share it with some people and they're like, oh, wow, that's great. Man, that's really great. I really like that. I like the way that, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm only one person looking at it. And yeah, you should have some decision making for how you want your branding to look or whatever the context is. But my opinion is not the only one that matters. And letting go of that is, it can be a little bit difficult, but I, like you mentioned earlier, is everything can't be done exactly how you would like it to be done. You got to work in a band of, yeah, that's cool, and allow other people to decide that yes, it is cool. It's actually cooler than you think. You just need to get over yourself or whatever.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, that's, also a big part of the transition. It's not only going from smaller property portfolio to scaling, it's trying to, take advantage of things I hadn't in the past, getting outside the comfort zone a bit, brand yourself, because now, once again, I'm not just getting involved with properties with one partner or another that I've been doing it with for so many years. You have to sell yourself to potential other general partners or investors. So, you have to get out there, brand yourself to a certain degree. If you're not out there, no one knows you exist.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the expectation is that you could be found somewhere. I mean, there's just no getting around it. That's one of the first things I do if there's somebody I'm interested in talking to is you Google search them and you see what kind of presence they have on the tubes or the internet. You just have to exist somehow virtually. Hey, it's Greg from Real Wealth Solutions. If you'd like to know more about our passive income opportunities, jump onto realwealth.solutions and hit that schedule a call button. We're always happy to talk about our multifamily and flip projects and to answer any questions you may have. Again, that's realwealth.solutions. We look forward to hearing from you. And now, back to the podcast.
Let's get to the next question is, even though you have started to scale and go larger and you realize you had to make some decisions in order to do that, you have been successful, 2 decades worth of successful real estate investing. Is there a constant for you throughout the years or now, something for you, mindset, mentally, that has made you successful? Can you pinpoint that to one thing, a behavior, a task, an action you do daily, weekly, your thoughts, anything along those lines?
That's evolved over time. It's funny, over the years, when you start at 21, it's just kind of getting up in the morning, excited about what you do and running out the door to go to work, but then, after you do that for 8 or 10 years and, you have, trials and tribulations along the way, you're much different, from, when you're 21 to 30, to 40. So your perception changes, with, degrees of success, after, being intense, working for 8, 10 years, you start to reflect a little bit where, you have to make some changes, so personal development really came into play probably in my early 30s. So, once you dive into that a bit, you see different ways to do things, which were very enlightening, instead of being so reactive and just being, there's ways to, control, certain habits and to create different habits once you realize that certain things hadn't served you very well. And if you did start doing things or creating habits and routines that will serve you very well. That's when you make those changes, which make a huge difference. A lot of that was, probably 10, 12 years ago. I had been looking at a lot of Tony Robbins information over the years, went to several of his events, and he has, he communicates that information super well. Is very, very clear on the benefits of, a lot of those resources and tools that, we don't even know exist until you focus on them. So I have made a lot of progress just based on being conscious of what doesn't serve me well and what does serve me well. Getting up in the morning, sitting quietly, being grateful for what you have, and focusing on the items that are very important to get done that particular day. Early on, for the first 10 years in business, I was a to-do list guy, and you get that satisfaction out of just crossing off as many tasks as you possibly can on your list, and not realizing that such a majority of those tasks were just minutia type items that don't make a big difference. Where now it's focusing, staying in that clear lane, focusing on the things that you enjoy, and focusing on the things that really make a big difference, which in this business, for me, is finding the property, going through the financing, what value add and what potential the property is going to have, and then putting it in the portfolio, and then repeating. That's the needle mover stuff, and that's the part of the business that I really have fun with. I was a very, very effective property manager, and I really was passionate about it for 10 or 15 years, but it's a job. It's a grind. Yep. And after a while, I just didn't enjoy it anymore.
Right. I know that from knowing you a while, you are a runner. So does it serve a dual purpose in the fact that, yes, you want to stay in tip-top physical shape, but what does it do for you mentally? Is it an outlet? How do you use that or view it mentally? Does it serve you in that way as well?
Yeah. I started running seriously in my 30s, so it was, an escape, in a way. Fortunately, I had always been, I was an athlete in high school, played some baseball in college, and continued to, I was a gym guy for years, but then it got to a point, where I was escaping after work, running. I just it was solitude for me, to the point where it turns into an addiction. So I continue to to run and cycle and swim on a regular basis. It's a great balance for me. Very, just very satisfying. I get a lot out of it.
Greg, do you have an off the wall question?
Do I have an off the wall? Do you run triathlons then? You mentioned running, cycling, and swimming. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I went from running marathons and got into triathlons through a few friends. So I done some half Ironman and the full length Ironman, and
right on.
I enjoy that mix. Instead of just running every day or 6 days a week, it's a nice mix. They all have different movements. So and it keeps things exciting. So every other day you're doing a different discipline.
Yeah, we had some friends back home that were triathletes, and I was always impressed with their training regimen. I know how much time you people spend on that. It's quite impressive. My joke was always, if I'm swimming, something terrible has happened to the boat. Uh, but yeah, that's cool. Now more power to you. I find the same thing. Yeah, with the hiking. Yeah, that's just my little thing. Unfortunately, I do not find that my mind actually turns off completely. I'll be hiking or doing something that I think is like my escape, but there'll still be like a spreadsheet running around in my head. I'm just a little more happy uh, in the circumstance, I guess, that spreadsheet is running around in my head. But yeah, I don't know if haven't quite figured out how to fully escape. So.
All
It's
right, so
funny. It's funny you say that because I sit quietly in the morning and try to take advantage of that where you're supposed to be getting into a certain groove, meditation, however anybody defines it, and your mind goes crazy every day. Some days are better than others, but I seem to find that more when I'm exercising in the evening, without even trying to escape mentally. I seem to do better with the meditation naturally while I'm running, where you're able to escape differently. I do a better job of getting to that zone area than I do actually sitting in the morning, where I'm intentionally trying to, probably trying too hard, to get into that quiet zone in the morning, where it comes naturally when I'm exercising.
Yeah, and that's like something, we've done some mindset stuff and personal development, and I I think people do tend to put on an expectation of themselves that it's supposed to look like this when I'm doing it
Mm,
correctly. And I feel much better having gotten away from that. Is like, how can you meditate wrong? I mean, really, you sit down quietly, you get something out of it, you feel better. That's a good run. It doesn't have to look like what why set up an expectation as to how you should properly relax or reset? I don't know. But
no, I
like
agree.
back to the running thing is, yeah, sometimes things are still spinning around in my head, but that's also where I think sometimes where the subconscious starts kicking out those really good ideas, because you're not in this mode where you're working, you're like trying to put out content, or in straight production mode. You kind of get into some kind of rhythm of running or breathing with the meditation thing, and things will just start spinning out, good ideas, or that's an angle I've never even thought of to look at this, or something. So yeah, in any, give yourself a chance to have that opportunity to not force your way to a solution, let it come to you through some other way of participating in life, I guess.
Yeah, the exercising, the more and more we talk about it, and I, think about it, the exercising is that for me. It is a huge escape, and it's, where I benefit as much mentally as I do physically. It's funny, sometimes you're able to escape and just enjoy being out there. And then other times, yeah, great ideas come along where, you're sitting there, going out on a 9 mile run, and, you wish you had a pen and a notepad, because it's like, oh, I got to write that down. If I, by the time I get home, I'm going to forget this great idea, so, that does occur every now and then, that type of, that type of mindset that I'm in, exercising, yeah, will generate, good thoughts, good ideas.
Absolutely.
So the off the wall question I thought might be, tell us about that horse barn at the 12 unit.
Oh yeah, I was watching your video on it. It's a great little video, and kudos to you. You were very comfortable on the video. You're just chit chatting, and that's what I'm like. Oh, this guy's pretty comfortable. Yeah, I think you're sitting on a ton of knowledge with your experience that you could just walk a property and just have a lot of insight to it that you may not be giving yourself credit for, because you're just going to pick up on things that people just getting started are not going to, almost intuitively. I bet you're doing things that you don't even realize are super valuable. But yeah, you got this 12 unit and there's like a horse barn and a paddock there. What happened to that? Were you able to utilize that into the property, or did you just buy a horse?
No, that is my strong area, which I probably don't, give myself enough credit for is being able to, whether I'm walking a 2-family or probably once I get to the level, walking a 50 unit or a 100 unit, I'll have that field work ability that, I'll know what I can do with a property, pretty easily once I walk it and analyze it. But that was the first video I had ever done. That was me saying, I just joined, Jake and Gino, and everyone shares their stories, and that was a big part of getting involved, was to mingle with like-minded individuals. So I had been part of the group for a couple weeks, closed on that 12 unit, and I had to do the video to show everybody, my latest, purchase. So, that was the first time I did that. So I appreciate you saying that I seemed, so comfortable with it. But that property is an easy one because there's, it's got a lot of character. So it's not only a 12 unit apartment building, it had some, outer storage areas and a lot of value add to it, in addition to, that horse barn paddock area. The former owner, lived there, had 2 horses, so she really, did that area up very well because it was her passion. We're still trying to rent that. That's not as easy as renting an apartment.
Yeah, right.
Especially in the middle of winter. I think we do have some, good leads on it now that March is here, spring's around the corner. So, I would say that will be rented sometime in April. You're talking 900 square foot horse barn, a yard, fenced yard in area. And, that'll give another $800 or $900 a month.
Yeah, right.
She's
And I'm
got
sure you didn't analyze the property based on that income. You're like, okay, here's rents over here from these residential units. Here's some other upside over here on the corner we may be able to achieve. We won't throw that into the underwriting though. We'll leave that as the
Yeah, that was just a bonus. That was a bonus, but once you do own the property and as things are evolving, the bonus turns into, no, that's part of this pro forma rental income number. That's just more space that has to be rented. So at first it's a bonus, but now it's, hey, let's get this thing filled and get this thing up to its full potential.
If you've already got management in place for that 12 unit, and depending on the regulations in that area, possibly you could do an Airbnb short-term rental in there, just turn it over constantly. But I don't know if there's.
I don't know if horses know how to use a smartphone.
Well,
it's a great spot for it. It's only probably about 10 or 15 minutes from Saratoga. Saratoga, has the horse track there, and it's a very popular horse community. So, between that area with the 12 unit and Saratoga, it's very typical for properties to have, horses and farms just like that. So hopefully, I just had never rented a horse barn. So the target was, okay, let's go to a Facebook group that, have a love of horses. So, that's where we're reaching out the most, people in the horse world, and hopefully soon, someone will be interested in putting their horse or two at this property. The big question is, what's that type of tenant really need? Are they just going to leave their horses there unattended and have to check on them daily or weekly or whatever the case may be? We're starting to figure that out, because it's completely foreign to us. So hopefully, the lead that we have now is the type of person that is going to rent an apartment and rent that horse barn. So, they're gonna, basically be a renter of two spaces where you basically bundle up a package for them.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I like your idea. Like I mentioned, looking at it as gravy, but you sounded like you looked at it as, no, let's throw this in the pro forma and make sure we achieve it.
Fortunately, the property was, it was a great deal.
I mean, it did fine without it, but I mean, there's a little bit of a switch to say like, hey, maybe we'll do something with this to like, no, I actually have it as part of the analysis. Now we need to perform on it. It's a shit, I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. That's a little bit of a mind game that you can play on yourself, is take it out of the, it would be nice realm to, no, this is part of the business plan realm.
Yeah, it's you would put a lot less stability on that space. So when you're doing your vacancy, naturally, you can't depend on that as much as the apartments. The apartments are easy. The horse barn, yes, we've got to maximize that as much as possible. But it's almost like looking at it like commercial space. It's much harder to rent a commercial space than it is an apartment. That's part of the reason why I stayed in the apartment business is I don't have the patience for vacant spaces. So renting apartments, in good spots are easy to do. But hopefully the horse barn turns out to be, potential for someone that's, looking to be there for a while. Kind of that whole dynamic of commercial space. Once you get a tenant, hopefully you keep them there for 5 years or so.
Yeah, right.
Awkward pause.
I know.
Good thing we can edit that.
We'll have to get Kim to edit the awkward silence. We like to do that every now and then just to keep our editor on her toes. But
I love it.
I don't know. Should we wrap there? I think that's a pretty good spot. We got another recording coming up, so we could take a break and recharge. That's awesome, Bill. I mean, you're sitting on a ton of knowledge. I would love to just pick your brain, and walk around a property, because it'd be interesting just to listen to you be like, hey, blah, 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 we could do this, we could do that. It's just very interesting to talk to people that have knowledge that is almost a reflex, instead of, I just think it just would come off of you naturally to walk something and see the potential. Just having done it for 2 decades, I remember, for my W-2 job, I worked for Frito-Lay and I did sales with them, and it was to the point where you know, I could do it blind basically.
Mm.
And then when you bring somebody on new and you see them struggle, you realize it's like, oh, I'm, you know, I clearly have this down, but I don't even realize how good I was at it just because I had done it so long. And I don't know, I feel like that you're kind of in that position that, you know,
Yeah,
you're sitting
that's
down
my
on a lot of,
strong area. I'm a field guy, that's what I add to, my partnerships was, getting really good at, seeing the deal, physically seeing the deal and knowing right away, the potential and, taking quick action.
yeah. And then when you're looking at 120 unit and they're all basically the same, I mean, you could take that knowledge and like, and now we just have a template.
No, that's it. That's it. So, but there's the scaling portion of it. There's, I was really good at, the field work and taking action, which you can get away with on the small properties that I think that, there's a lot of admin and systems that are much, are much more necessary with the larger stuff, that you have to handle properly, which is what we're really working on. Where the smaller stuff, I was able to get away with a lot without having great systems in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's another reason why I didn't grow as fast as I could have, not having systems in place to scale, especially with those smaller properties. But I know clearly, that's part of the reason why I had to bring somebody in to help me with that.
Yeah. Well, and once you get to that owner instead of operator, you can be wherever you want and still execute. So, we've got a friend that's in storage and he's doing the same thing. He's had stuff for 10, 15 years and is finally making a transition to third party management. And his name's Brian. I'm like, Brian, when you do this, you're going to look back in 3 weeks and wonder why you didn't do it 6 or 7 years ago. So,
yeah,
Absolutely.
So, no, I agree.
Bill, tell the listeners, if you will, how they can get in touch with you. They just want to pick your brain, whatever, chit chat about business.
Yeah, give me an email at, it's Bill at HAMEL realestate.com. Bill at hamelrealestate.com. Email me at any point. I'm easy to get on a call with. Love to talk the business. I do have also a strong desire, to assist, anybody with lesser experience, in the smaller properties or even medium-sized properties. Anybody that's just looking for solutions, answers to, some of the questions, challenges that come up, in the apartment business.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Right on. All right, I'll take us out, Darren. Thank you all for joining us here on the Real Wealth Solutions podcast. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your time. Look forward to, you said you're trying to get maybe 2 or 3 acquisitions in 2021. I suggest a year from now we check back with you and hear the stories of the 12 months in front of us. So looking forward to that discussion. So yeah, if you found our talk with Bill useful, somebody might benefit from hearing what he had to say, we appreciate you sharing this with them. And as always, we appreciate a review and a comment on whatever platform you're choosing to engage with us on. So for that, for Darren, for myself, and for Bill, thank you all for joining us. We will see you on the next episode.